All right, hey students, I might not be there in person, but you still get to hear from me about this really important piece as we begin diving into the data for this course, and that's the social contract theory. So much of this social contract theory is exactly what is the foundation of the ideas of the U.S. government, and you'll see here in a second what I'm talking about. Really, social contract theory is about two main things. What happens when people choose to give up some of their power in order to form a government? And then what is the purpose of that government? Those are the two things that we need to think about when we're looking at social contract theory. What we're really looking at here is a whole bunch of people that fall under the idea of social contract theorists. These are philosophers that look at this idea of human nature. And really the key ones that we look at are Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, that's the biggest one that we'll look at, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Those three all are writing about this social contract idea in the 1600s and 1700s. Really what we're looking at here under Thomas Hobbes' idea, who comes first, he's saying that man is inherently evil. We want to do bad things, and we want to not follow the rules, and we want to look out for ourselves and only ourselves, and the only way we can keep control of that, he says, is to have an all-powerful leader, a Leviathan. That's the name of his work that he writes. But that Leviathan is looking at this idea that's saying the only way we can keep control is with an all-powerful king, a supreme ruler, somebody that will step up and take over if need be. Thomas Hobbes simply said that the state of nature, when there was no government, it would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Nobody would want to live in this kind of environment. Why? Because there would be no government, and because human nature is such an evil thing. He said the only way we can control them is with that dictator figure, if you will. Think for a moment about the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. One of the reasons they emerge, perhaps a great example of human nature, this evil nature that they might show, is because there is no despotic leader. There is no dictator to take control. When Saddam Hussein was overthrown, there was a power vacuum. When Bashar al-Assad is in the midst of a civil war, there's a power vacuum. And maybe there's some evidence that Hobbes was right, that the way we control human nature in some instances is with this all-powerful leader. What we turn to then is a different view of human nature, and that's John Locke. John Locke counters Thomas Hobbes when he says human nature is essentially good, and we can do really good things together. And one of the key pieces that we look at are John Locke's ideas that we find in the Declaration of Independence. The theories that come out of this, like John Locke, are based on this idea of a state of nature. Again, what is that state of nature? When there is no government. We're plopped in the middle of the island, the plane has crashed, whatever the case is, there is no government. So what's naturally going to happen? That state of nature is a key question. And that key question that John Locke says is, you know what? We're good. We're good people. We want to protect our things. We want to own our things. And we want everybody to be happy. That state of nature is what life is like before we've created any sort of government. According to John Locke, it's pretty simple. Everybody is equal. Everybody has rights and liberties. And it follows what he says are the natural laws of reason. Number one, don't harm others' life or health. Don't take away people's liberty or rights. Don't take away people's property or possessions. And everybody has to preserve himself and others in this society. The idea in the state of nature is everybody has the right to punish other people for breaking these natural laws. That's called the executive power. When that executive power is used by every single person, that's when chaos starts to happen. For John Locke, The state of nature is dangerous. It's violent and chaotic. If everybody has the right to punish people who break the laws of nature, that life in a state of nature is a ticking time bomb, and you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to get upset. So we've got to have some sort of control. What we do, according to John Locke, is we trade the state of nature for some sort of government. Since we don't want war, we don't want everybody's life, liberty, and property to be taken away, we give up some of those liberties, we create a civil society, and we form a government. And we give that government the executive power to punish people who mess with our life, liberty, or property. That's the function of government in this case, is to protect our life, liberty, and property. The idea that John Locke is talking about is our identity is wrapped up in the idea that we have life, liberty, and property, and a government needs to do everything it can to protect that. How do we do that? We form a social contract. So when we form that government to protect ourselves from the violence of that state of nature, we enter into a contract and we shake each other's hands and we say, nobody's going to take away my right, I'm not going to take away your rights, we're going to let this government enforce the rules. The key part of John Locke's idea, though, is sometimes that government gets corrupted. Sometimes that government steps over the line. Sometimes that government needs to be thrown out. And for John Locke, that state of nature that comes into a government that is based on a social contract, when that government steps over the line, we have a right to revolution. People have a right to rebel when their rights are no longer protected. And that's what the Founding Fathers used as a reason for declaring independence from England. And that's why it's an important piece that we look at in our history of government. That's it. That's all for now. We'll see you next time. I hope you learned something in the social contract theory. It's important because, again, these are the ideas behind U.S. government. Hopefully that sets the stage for you. And that's the stuff that we're going to keep referring back to throughout the rest of this course. Be safe out there.